Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. Another week, more snow, and if anybody's living in that band of snow that's running across the Midwest, I'm sorry, because we're getting some of it too, and it stinks. So I'll be out there shoveling a little later today, which is a bummer. It is never fun. I think I shoveled twice yesterday afternoon / evening. Just not fun. I mean, I even have a small snowblower, and it's still just, I hate getting out there. So thankfully, my neighbor's got one of those monster, walk behind, big old auger style snow blowers, and kind of helped out down near the driveway where the plows came, pushed everything up against the street. He came through and kind of blew that out for me, which I was very, 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 very grateful for. But yeah, another week, man. It's flying by. It's crazy. This week flew by. It's already Thursday. It's shocking how fast these weeks go by. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I just don't remember, the years, the days, whatever, going by this quickly. But it's been a good week. You got to get out and hit some balls last weekend, which was nice. I'm going to try to do the exact same thing this weekend as well. But before we get into it today, just want to let you know this episode brought to you by Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls. And the Pro V1, Pro V1X have been the number one ball in golf for ever. They've been the number one golf for a long, long time. If you haven't hit one of the new Pro V1s, the brand new ones, were kind of totally redesigned. Cover to core, basically brand new, softer cast urethane elastomer cover. Helps you kind of increase greenside control and spin. And then they have faster casing layers that kind of reduce long game spin, reformulated cores for more distance, and then new dimple patterns in each one to deliver the desired ball flight. So if you're looking for something that flies a little lower long game spin, check out the Pro V1. If you're looking for something that flies a little higher, has a little firmer feel, check out the Pro V1X. Both have a ton of greenside spin, but go to Titleist.com, check out the Pro V1 and Pro V1X. So unfortunately, these two, I don't have any trips planned, so they won't be being used anytime real soon. Which is a bummer. I'm trying to make sure stuff doesn't fall as I'm talking. It's one of those things where you come down to do this podcast. I do my podcast out of my basement, and which was nice. I mean, I like being able to kind of just come down here and whenever I want to and record. But it's also one of those things where I gotta turn off the furnace. I got to turn off this. I got to make sure these things set. It was just like a whole process to make sure that I don't get a ton of wild outside noise from everywhere else. But all good. And like I said, it's fun to be able to do this right from home and not have to trek into the office, especially on a day like today when, like I said, the roads around Metro Detroit and probably much south, are kind of a disaster. But yeah, so we got that going. But yeah, went out, had a whole bag. If you saw me on Instagram, at Club Junkie Pod, you saw that my Instagram story. I was out there, it was 17 degrees. I had a full bag, just a whole, like full staff bag, 10.5-inch vessel staff bag, stuffed with clubs, and went out and hit some balls, and it was great. Like I said, I love getting out there. The range I go to, which is in Royal Oak, Michigan. I don't know if you're familiar with Metro Detroit, but it's in Royal Oak, Michigan. It's got a bunch of, I think it's got something like 35 covered tees with heat. And honestly, if the wind's not blowing in at you, it's actually not bad. The heaters are pretty strong, and they're all totally covered. It's a whole building basically you're hitting out of. So I mean, it's pretty well insulated. So when you're hitting balls, like I said, if the wind's not blowing at you, you're totally fine. And I was there. Went in. I don't know, did I go on Sunday? I think it was Sunday. But anyway, went on Sunday morning. It was 17 degrees. I was the only car in the lot other than the 3 people working there. So I think there were 3 cars in the lot. I pulled in. I was the 4th. Walked in. There were 3 people working. And I walked out into the range after paying for my balls. Walked out to the range. No one else there. It was just me. So I had all 35 bays. So I walked down, got my balls, set up shop, and I brought both launch monitors, the full swing kit, and the Mevo Plus, just because I kind of wanted to compare 2 of them, and whatever. I just done the update on the full swing, so I was kind of bringing everything there. So I brought everything. I found a bay that had, because depending on where you are, it's kind of like a little bit of a semicircle, or got a little curve to it, and certain bays don't have as much room behind them. So I went, found a bay that had some of the longest distance behind me, so I could set up the launch monitors and got everything set up, started hitting balls. And I was probably, I hit some wedges, hit some other things, and it was actually all of a sudden I like 3 people came in at the same time. Like 3 people walked in, 2 like younger guys and a woman, and they walk in and and I'm sitting there hitting balls. All 3 of them, the 2 guys drop their bags in the 2 stalls directly behind me, and the woman puts her bag down in the stall directly in front of me. And I'm looking and like these whole place, 35 bays, wide open, and they come and set their stuff down directly next to me. And not that I really care. I mean, I put in headphones, and I don't really care to listen to people's conversations or whatever, so I don't truly care, but I was just like, why? Like, why? Like, why are you directly next to me? So the woman actually went out, she walked down, got her balls out of the machine, and as she took her bag and went down a little ways. But the 2 guys directly behind me. And I know I was, and they're high school kids, because one had a varsity jacket on, so, I mean, they're high school guys. And I know when I was a high schooler, I probably did, stupid crap that 40-year-old guys like myself, didn't like. And I know getting older, I'm probably that crotchety old man. But they sat there and it was just one of those things where it was like it was just 2 dudes hanging out in the morning. And I'm down with that, but it was just like constantly talking and just, comparing golf to hockey, and they were hockey guys and talking about hockey and all this stuff. And it was like, I just had to turn up my headphones to like drown them out. Like I just wanted to go, be by myself, hit some balls and whatever. And literally directly behind me. It's kind of like being, I don't know there's probably no women who listen to this show, but if you're a guy who walk into like a large bathroom that's got like 10 urinals, and you walk up and you go to use the urinal, and a guy walks and just right next to you. And you just look and go, why? Like, why not? Just give us a little bit of space. There's open spots as far as you can see. Just take one of the others. And and then the great conversation they got to kind of near the end of the end of their buckets was how much easier golf was than hockey, because golf used a stationary golf ball. And I was like, you have no clue what you're talking about. And again, I'm not criticizing anybody's skill level, whatever, but saying that golf is so easy. And there were numerous shots ricocheted off the dividers, the metal dividers between me and the gentleman behind me, and there were a lot of shots that were definitely turf first from what I could hear. So to say that it's a whole lot easier than hockey, I don't know about that. And it's funny because when you listen to most professional athletes who either play golf or retired and play golf, whatever, almost every single one of them tells you golf is the hardest sport they've ever played. So. But it was just an interesting range session. And then on top of that, so that went on, which was interesting. And then I had both launch monitors set up, and right out of the gate, like they're starting to get kind of funky numbers. And I was like, and the thing I noticed was, and both of them were, and I was hitting balls at this flag, which I didn't look at the plaque that was over attached, because they have plaques that all the different flags out on the range. They have a plaque that basically tells you how far they are, and they're usually actually pretty accurate. I think they go through, and if they move anything, they go out and laser it and whatever. They're always pretty darn close, within a couple yards. And I was hitting some shots, and I was like looking back at my iPad and stuff and my phone, because everything was on there, and I was hitting some, like, just started off with some wedge shots, and I was hitting some wedge shots at this green flag, and I'm hitting some shots, and it was saying 66, 68, 70 yards, right around that for the machines. And I was like, okay, I'm like, that's fine. And I'm hitting these things. And I was like, man, that green flag looks a little farther than 66 yards. And I look over on the flag and it says 90. And I was like, oh boy, this is not good. So then I pulled out a 7-iron, and I started hitting 7-iron shots out to like the 150 flag. And again, it's 17 degrees, and I'm not a long hitter. So 7-iron for me is typically like a 150 club or a 160 club. In this condition, 150 probably is a pretty good shot. I'm hitting them kind of at the 150 marker, and they're pretty. On the shots I hit right there, they're going pretty much right at the flag. And I look back and it's like 135, one whatever, and I mean so both machines just way off. And I don't know if it was like the snow or the temperature, because like the snow and the sky were like the exact same color. So when you looked at it, it was just like gray. But neither machine was really picking up the ball. And then eventually, the Mevo Plus just like stopped reading anything. It would I don't know if it got so cold, but it literally was just basically giving me club head speed, and that was it. So I was hitting like my show today. We're talking about the Cobra 3 woods. I was hitting 3 woods, and I literally I unfortunately had to just go by visual because I was getting, like, numbers wise were just either way off or I got nothing. So I ended up shutting down both of them, packing them up, and unfortunately not using them. So I don't know if it's a cold thing. I mean, I know 17 degrees is probably not what any of these launch monitor companies designed these things for, or if it was something with the snow and kind of the haze of the sky or whatever that caused it. But it was I was getting pretty much either bad readings or no readings from both launch monitors. And like I said, I had them both set up like next to each other, firing down the range, and it was just kind of a disaster there. So unfortunately, I don't have any numbers for 3-woods, which I was bummed. Like I said, I brought them out there to specifically kind of hit some 3-woods and see if there's a difference in launch and spin and all that stuff. But I unfortunately wasn't able to get that for you. I tried. I definitely tried, but it wasn't quite there. So yeah, I got like a few things to talk about today. The first one going to be Cobra Fairway woods. And I actually have all 3 Fairway woods, which is pretty cool. And I had them all out on the range. And I basically, the nice thing was with Cobra, interchangeable shafts. I was able to kind of put, they sent, I can't remember what it was. They sent a Project X, the IM10, the Smoke IM10 in one of them. I think the LTDx. They sent a USD Helium in the LTDx Max. And then there was a Tensei AV White 75 in the LTDx LS. So I basically just took the LTD LS, the Tensei out of that, and just used it in all 3 heads, which was really nice. And I'm a huge fan of having interchangeable shafts and adjustable hosels, pretty much strictly for that reason. So I can either bring some new shafts and play them, or I can go to the range and take a shaft and put it in 2 or 3 different heads or whatever, and kind of test them against each other, which is super nice. So the bonded stuff, out there, I totally get why they do it. It's a performance thing. I totally understand that there's a lot of weight that goes into an adjustable hosel. They no longer, need to dedicate there. So I totally get, the whole bonded thing. But it's always fun when you get an adjustable hosel, 3-wood, driver, whatever. Even hybrids I kind of like, because then I can, again, take shafts and swap them out and things like that. So, yeah, it was nice. So took out the 3 Cobras. Unfortunately, like I said, I wish I had like actual numbers for you guys. Unfortunately, I don't. I'll try to get out again. This weekend I don't think is going to be any warmer. So I don't know if they're going to work. I'm going to charge them up again. I'm going to take them out. We're going to try it and see. But like I said, I don't know if it's a cold thing or a snow thing. Like, does the radar reflect off the snow and jack things up? I have no clue. So I was going to reach out to the guys at either Full Swing or Flight Scope and just ask and say, like, is it just something with the conditions? But I forgot this week. I didn't send that email to either one. So, but like I said, I'll charge them up next week, and we'll or this week, and we'll at least see what we can do with it. So we'll start off. So there's three Fairway woods for Cobra this year, and we'll start off with one that actually was kind of surprising for me. I was like I said, I brought out all 3. And figured let's hit them and see what goes on. And the one that I actually was kind of surprised with that performed a lot better than I expected was actually the LTDx Max, which is their maximum kind of forgiveness head. It is kind of the biggest, shallowest head that they have in the line. And it's got the 2 movable weights that are in kind of a neutral and a draw position. So it's it's touted as higher launch. I think they call it mid-high launch, mid-high spin, or mid-spin, and or high launch mid-spin, and it's got a slight draw bias, but with a ton of forgiveness. And you guys know that I don't need any help drawing the ball, and I can definitely hit it left anytime that I don't need to. But I was like, I'm taking all 3 out anyway. I got them all. They're all interchangeable, so let's go. So I brought this one out, and I was actually kind of shocked. So I didn't realize that. It definitely has. I didn't realize that, like, Cobra kind of says, like, if you keep the weight in the neutral position, so in the far back. So there's 2 weights, a 12 gram and a 3 gram, and if you put the 12 gram in the back section, it's definitely more neutral, and it even like labels it as neutral. And on their website it says it is close to neutral with I can't remember what they say, like a couple yard draw to it or something like that. Like, it's very subtle, but it's very, very neutral. And actually, the thing I was kind of surprised with the weight back in the center, I didn't move it to heel because I don't need to, but it actually had a more neutral feel than I thought it would. I thought for sure the thing would kind of launch high, just go left, and it would be something that, you know, you would struggle just to hit it straight, if not fade it. But I think the first shot I hit was with this, and the first shot was just absolutely just ripped down the range. I hit just an absolute great ball, and it did. It had just a hair of a draw to it, and like I said, my shots are straight to left, and that thing was just hit really well with, like I said, a slight draw. It was probably, I mean, it was probably more like 10-yard draw, but still for me that's not too bad. Setting it down, this one actually has the navy finish, the navy blue gloss top. And I do have to say, I actually kind of like the navy blue gloss top. It's a 15.5-degree head. It does sit just a slight bit shut. When you compare it to the other two heads, it is just a little bit shut when you set it down in a dress. And at first, again, I was kind of worried about that. But really, it didn't really, like I said, go left. On good shots, I'd basically hit like a 10-yard draw with it. And it was easy to elevate, easy to get up in the air. I would say it is pretty much kind of a mid-high launch. It definitely gets up pretty easily, but it doesn't. But it doesn't like spin an absolute ton. It doesn't like have a ton of rise to it. It's still fairly low spin, and that's the thing for me with Rad Speed. I took out like the standard Rad Speed and the Rad Speed Tour last year. I think it was called the Rad Speed Tour. I took out both, and in the Rad Speed, the standard one, I could get it up in the air, it was no problem, but it just spun like crazy and went nowhere for me. I would hit it, it would kind of jump up, it would rise, and the ball would just fall out of the sky. And there were times when I was playing by myself in the fall, and I'd hit like a 3-wood on a par 5, like towards a green, and then I'd lay down a hybrid and hit like hybrid, and I would just kind of hit some balls, and I would walk up, and the shots with the 3-wood are just maybe a handful of yards longer than the ones with the hybrid. So I struggled a lot with Rad Speed fairway woods. They just, for me, were really spinny. And this thing here definitely had a flatter trajectory, but it was still easy to get up in the air. Like I said, I call it mid-high launch, and it didn't have an absolute ton of draw to it. I was really surprised at how easy this is to hit, even for a guy like myself who hooks the ball pretty hard. It went, I said, good shots, 10-yard draw, and they were really easy to launch, and they were decently long. Like I said, I wish I could give you a real accurate number and give you spin numbers and all that, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. But like I said, in terms of just visual ball flight and visually playing it, much better for me than Rad Speed. I think this thing is, and this one is really forgiving. I mean, I hit a lot of shots, especially with 3-wood. I get, like I said, I mean, like I've always said, I kind of come over the top and from the outside down. So I hit, most of my misses with these are kind of high toe. Those are my miss with most of my fairway woods. And even shots hit off there. I mean, they went further left. They'd have a little more draw to them. And they jump up in the air, definitely. But they actually carried a decent amount of ways. And they didn't have as much curvature to them as I thought. They really did stay on line better than the other, out of the three. Stuff stayed on line way better with the Max than I wouldn't say way better. But it stayed on line better than the other two. But definitely a very forgiving head. And like I said, a little bit closed at address, which at first I kind of was like, eh. But once I started hitting a couple shots and I hit some good shots, it didn't even really matter. Kind of didn't even really notice it. And if you really care, like I said, this is a 15.5-degree head. You could probably turn it down 1 degree, play at 14.5, and I think it still would launch high enough for a lot of players. And then at that point, I probably would put in something other than a Tensei AV white. A low launching, lower spinning shaft. I'd probably put something more, like an AV blue or something like that, just to get that launch back. And I think it would be a super easy to hit fairway wood. But the sound is good. It's metallic. It's got that ting to it when it goes, but it's really pleasant. It's not crazy loud. It's pretty muted, but it has a metallic ting to it, like you would expect with a steel fairway wood that has pretty hot face. Excuse me. But like I said, misses on the off high on the toe, still traveled pretty well. I was still getting it out there. It was definitely going beyond. Like for me, a good shot with a 3-wood off the deck is probably anywhere like 235 to 240. Like that's a good shot for me. And again, a little harder to judge when you get up to those distances at a range, but it was definitely flying beyond, even like a high off the toe was flying beyond that 200 flag. So. I think, like I said, forgiveness-wise, all that, really good, really easy to hit. And I was kind of surprised that it wasn't so draw-heavy. Now, if you throw the weight in the heel, the heavy weight, the 12-gram weight in the heel, I'm going to assume you're going to see some draw to it. I think they, I can't remember what Cobra says. I think it's something like, I can't remember what the number is, but it's, yeah, in the heel they say it's like 11 yards a draw. If you're somebody who hits it dead straight, so for me it'd probably be 20 yards a draw. But no, like I said, if you move the weight, probably see some draw, some more draw there. And then they also have on the adapter, you'd have a draw setting as well, which I think makes it a little more upright. So you could really add some some decent draw to this thing if you really need to take out the right side. But if you're somebody who plays a fairly straight ball and you're kind of worried about a thing going left, I think this is still worth trying. I mean, I think there's still a reason to try just for the forgiveness aspect and the height aspect. Being able to launch it high and get it up in the air and land a little softer. If you are hitting into a par 5 or something like that. But in the neutral setting, it's fairly neutral. I mean, I don't think even if you're a heavy drawer of the ball, I don't think you necessarily have to shy away from this head. If you, like I said, put it in, say, 14.5 degree, opens the face just a touch, a little higher launching shaft, I think you're going to have something that's super easy to hit. So I will definitely be doing that. I will probably go and toss in like either Ventus Red or something like that. I'm going to try something else in there that launches a little higher, and I'm going to open the face a little bit and just see if maybe that makes it a pure straight machine. But I really did enjoy the Max more than I thought, and only because, like I said, it kind of surprised me on what it did there. Excuse me, I'm gonna get my water here. It's early in the morning. So the Max is, like I said, LTDx Max, really good, but it is really forgiving, really easy to hit. And then the next one that they have is the LTDx. So the standard LTDx, which is kind of I wouldn't say new. I mean, this is kind of like the replacement to just, I guess, Rad Speed, where the other one's kind of a Rad Speed draw, but it's Rad Speed Max. But the LTDx, one single weight in the back. I guess it's removable. You can take it out, but got an 8-gram weight back there. And this one here, a little deeper face, little smaller profile. When you look at it there, it definitely has a little overall smaller profile when you set it down, but not tiny, like not crazy tiny. Like some of the tour heads and some of the more player-focused 3-woods out there. This thing definitely has a little more space to it, or a little bigger footprint to it. And LTDx is kind of touted in between, so it's touted as little lower spinning, a little flatter launch than the Max, a little more neutral ball flight, and then it's going to be still more higher launching, whatever, than the LTDx LS. But the X is the one that I kind of was thinking was going to be more for me, and hitting it might be. It's going to be one of those things where I think hitting the Max kind of tweaked a little bit compared to the LTDx. It'll be interesting to see kind of how those two compare. But the LTDx, actually really easy to hit. It looks really good when you set it down. It looks more neutral. It's not shut like the Max is. It looks pretty much neutral, and it's touted as a neutral ball flight. And to be honest, it's pretty much that. I think Cobra says it's got the ball will fall to the left on a perfect strike. I think this thing is pretty much that. I mean, it pretty much goes dead straight when you hit it well. I mean, when I hit this thing well, same thing. I always have just kind of a little bit of right to left movement. And it had a little bit of that. Definitely a little flatter ball flight. Noticeably flatter than the Max. But it's still easy to get off the ground and get up in the air. Again, I think AV white for me in a 75X is a little strong in most 3-woods. Other than, say, like a high launching Max head. But in a standard head, it's a little much for me. But compared, it is probably, it's noticeable in flight. When you look at the windows that they go through, the LTDx Max compared to the LTDx is significantly lower. I would say, just by judging from me, it's probably a good. Again, I don't have numbers, so I'm just kind of judging by visually. I would say it's probably more than 5 feet difference in terms of peak height. It was definitely a flatter ball flight. It definitely was not as didn't jump up in the air as high as quickly, but it did get up. And it was a flat, more penetrating flight. You could definitely tell it had a less spin on it, and that thing was carrying a good ways. I think total distance between the two, in terms of carry, the Max probably carried a touch farther. Probably going to get a little more roll out of the LTDx. The LTDx though was actually more forgiving than I thought. Not quite as much. I mean, hitting it high toe there, the ball would still get up and go. It definitely carried, it still carried that 200-yard flag, so I know it was still going a decent ways, but I don't think it quite had the same oomph that the Max had, and it also had a little more draw to it when you hit it high off the toe like that. So it definitely still is forgiving. You can get away with some shots. I mean, I hit some stuff kind of thin, and some other shots high, center of the face. That still actually carried, better than I thought. Sound actually is very similar. Like I said, high pitch, or not high pitch, but metallic sound. What you'd expect from like a stainless steel fairway wood. Overall feel is really good. You know exactly where you hit it on the face. When you hit it high toe, you pretty much know that you hit it high toe. The sound changes a little bit, but it's not harsh in any way. But LTDx, definitely a more neutral ball flight. This one here, every once in a while, I mean, I know I can say, the right side's out of play for me. Every once in a while, I will kind of flare one out to the right. And this one here, I mean, you can definitely hit a fade with it if you need to or if you want to. If you want to draw it, you can definitely draw it. I mean, it's pretty neutral. It's pretty workable. I hit a couple that were kind of little flares to the right, just kind of falling back on the right side or dropping that right shoulder. But it was actually a really easy club to hit. I think that with kind of a kind of, let's call it a regular shaft for me, which is kind of more of a mid to mid-high launching shaft, I think would offer a really good ball flight for me, still being low spin, good carry, and it's like I said, still forgiving enough to get away with some bad shots. But like I said, initially you'll see immediately that it flies a little flatter, and like I said, the actual trajectory is probably more of a boring trajectory than kind of up in the air and down like the LTD Max. Like I said, from address, I like the look of this one just a little bit better. Like I said, the face is neutral, even in standard, so at 15 degrees, it's not going to look a little shut. You're not going to have to manipulate loft to make it look a certain way. It just looks straight there. I think Cobra's, in terms of shape, has done really well. And the LTDx is something that it's traditional looking enough. I mean, it does have the two kind of aerodynamic fins on it on the top, but I think even with that, it's a pretty great shape. And the matte black, a lot of people love kind of that matte black finish. But it's easy to hit. Like I said, I was pretty impressed with it. I thought off the tee, it was definitely easy to hit. With the little flatter trajectory, you could tee it up a little bit and not worry about it kind of, jumping up in the air and going too high. Still had a boring trajectory and still went. And like I said, these two, or really all three, just a big improvement for me over Rad Speed. I think, like I said, this one here, which I would say compared to like the standard Rad Speed, this one probably launches a little flatter, a little lower, at least for me, than a standard Rad Speed. But it definitely spun less, definitely had a more boring trajectory, and it was definitely longer. Again, don't have exact numbers, but it was definitely longer than the Rad Speed for me, and definitely easier to hit. Like I said, I mean, that thing, you could get away with some shots and you hit it off center, and I think because it does spin a little less and launch a little flatter, I could get away with some shots that were off center that still got out there and were playable. Where Rad Speed, it would be kind of just, jump up and it would just kind of flutter away, or either have like kind of a weak fade right, or go hard left with a lot of spin. So it was something where this thing is definitely more neutral, more playable, and like I said, easy to hit. It's definitely flatter, but I like hitting it. I think like the deeper face off the tee is great, and it goes a long way. When you hit it dead center, it definitely flies and goes hard. I know it's kind of like you get into one and then it's like, well, this one's just slightly different, and here's why. But so it's kind of like, I really like the LTDx, and I know I didn't talk about it quite as much, and then there's the LTDx LS, so the more player focused, I'll call it, 3-wood, most compact out of the three. Definitely has the cleanest look on the top when you look at it. It doesn't have those like aerodynamic bars on the top. It's just a straight flat black. Definitely smaller. You can just kind of see a little bit of carbon fiber. When you're in the actual daylight, you'll see a little more carbon fiber, matte carbon fiber on the top of that. And then this one's got two weights that are kind of pushed forward and in kind of a draw and fade position. And they say, Cobra says even in the draw position, which I actually didn't change. I don't think I realized it was in the draw position, the heavier weight. And this one is, I think it's 12 grams again. Yeah, 12. And so there's a 12 gram and a 3 gram. They say even the 12 gram, putting it in the heel, offers basically a ball flight that if you hit perfectly will go up and just fall to the right, even in the heel. And then if you really want to fade it, you move that 12 gram out to the toe, and it said it does like 4 to 5 yards of fade. And I should have moved the weight just to try it, and like I said, didn't even think about it. But I think when you roll into the range with like 25 clubs, sometimes you just forget to do things. But no, it was this one here, definitely the most. It's got the deepest face. It's definitely the most demanding in terms of hitting it. It definitely is less forgiving. You notice that when you hit it straight, it's got a piercing trajectory. Definitely the lowest of the three. Definitely the flattest. Hardest one to launch out of the three. It's not bad. I mean, you can still get it up in the air. I mean, I hit some good shots with it, but I was definitely penalized the most for it off the deck. Especially, I was penalized the most for it when you missed it. Hitting it high toe, things like that. I mean, high toe will get it up in the air, but if you missed it a little thin or anything like that, kind of low heel, that ball was riding like 6 feet, 10 feet off the ground. It definitely takes a little more to get that thing going. Which is what it's designed for. I mean, it's designed for players who are high launch, high spin players who are looking for forgiveness, but they're really looking to bring that launch and spin down, and it definitely will. I mean, like I said, out of the three, for sure the flattest. Even off the tee, I think this thing launched lower than LTDx off the deck. For me, like I said, that deep face, that forward CG. Just for me, it's not a 3-wood for me, which is great. But there's a lot of players out there, a lot of players, especially that I get to talk to, that are looking for something that hey, I'm looking for a 3-wood that doesn't spin, that launches low. I'm just a high speed, high spin player, and this LTDx LS I think is definitely something worth looking at. Ball flight definitely neutral in the draw setting, as we'll call it. I thought it was pretty much neutral. I thought it played a lot like the LTDx. I thought the ball flights were very similar for me in terms of directional. I thought they were very straight to maybe just even for me just a slight draw. Again, I draw it harder than a lot of other people. But the LTDx LS, like I said, I would love to switch it to the 12 gram to the toe and see how that flies, because it would be interesting to see how much fade that really puts on there. But even in the quote unquote draw position, it's pretty darn neutral. And like I said, ball flight wise, I would say kind of like how the LTDx is probably 5+ yards or 5+, well, let's call it 5+ feet lower than Max, which is probably more than that. But I would say LTDx LS is probably about the same for me than LTDx. It was just a really flat ball flight. It was just really penetrating, really flat ball flight, and you could tell. I mean, it had no spin. What wind we had on that day just didn't affect the ball at all. I mean, it just, when you hit it there, especially with the LS, it just kind of stayed on line and went. But I did see, like I said, when I came down over the top on it and hit it left, I mean, it definitely had the most curvature, had the most left out of the three. And the same thing, if I hit a shot that went a little right, it definitely went the furthest right. So in terms of forgiveness, I don't think it's bad in terms of forgiveness for a kind of a more player-focused iron, I think, or a player-focused 3-wood. I think, better players are still going to get away with some shots that they miss, but it is definitely more demanding. Like, you are going to have to hit better shots with that club compared to LTDx and Max. It's just the way it is, and that's the way it's designed. I mean, I don't think Cobra's trying to hide that. I think on their website they even say, in terms of forgiveness, it's like a mid forgiveness compared to a high or an extreme or however the maximum. So I mean, they'll let you know that they're not trying to hide it. That is definitely the least forgiving out of the three. And is it one that, if I put a higher launch shaft in, whatever, yeah, I could probably get the trajectory up a little bit. But honestly, I just don't think there's enough forgiveness for me there. I would love to see, for me, I think I'm an X or a Max guy. But the LS, I think, like I said, deeper phase off the tee, it's great. It's an absolute cannon off the tee. I could see where, in a certain setup, I mean, I'd like to see come spring on a course hitting that versus driver. I wonder how far. What far difference it would be. If I cranked up the loft a little bit, hit it off a tee, I think you could hit some drives or some shots off the tee with that are, creeping in on, a driver distance, just because it seems to be that hot, that low spin, and it flies. So, for me, LS is probably done for the testing portion of this. I'm probably going to move on from it. But, like I said, if you're a high spin, high spin, high launch player who's looking for something that's not a big, a club that goes left, I think LTDx LS is something definitely worth trying, especially moving that weight out in the toe and seeing what it really does. Because I think, like I said, even in the draw setting, the thing is supposed to kind of fade, and it definitely was neutral for sure for me. I definitely didn't have to worry about drawing it or anything like that. But like I said, if you're that player, I think putting this one on your list compared to the Rad Speed tour that I hit last year, this thing much more like I said, much more playable, flatter launching, lower spinning, definitely compared to the Rad Speed tour, at least for me. The Rad Speed tour for me, still same thing. I kind of launched it a little high. It kind of rose on me a little bit. You'd see a little rise in the ball flight, and the thing would kind of follow the sky, fairly steep. And this thing here, definitely flatter, definitely get some roll out of it. Like I said, if you're a high-speed player, I think putting this one on your list is definitely worth it, because it's it's built for speed. I think they took a little more info out of Bryson's book, and it's definitely something that those better players like that are definitely gonna take a bigger notice of it. So, like I said, high speed, high launch, high speed player, high spin. Look at the LS. Like I said, I think it's definitely worth looking at. For most average players, if you're a better player but you still need some launch, you don't need to get it crazy high, but you still need some launch. You still don't want something that goes crazy left. I think LTDx is definitely still more of a neutral ball, a neutral head, kind of that mid to slightly mid-high flight, and then probably true mid flight, pretty low spin, but you can get away with some shots and it still looks good. LTDx, and then if you're looking for maximum forgiveness, easiest to launch, LTD Max, because or LTDx Max, because it is really just easy to hit. But again, if you're somebody who draws the ball a little bit, don't necessarily worry about Max, because it may surprise you with how neutral it kind of is when you set it up with the heavier weight in the back. So those are the Cobra Fairway woods. Like I said, one of these days I'll try to get out when it gets a little warmer or less snow or whatever it is. I will try to get out with the launch monitors again and get some numbers. Kind of stunk that I didn't have them, but we will try to do that another day and at least compare them that way again. But the Cobra stuff, I think Fairway woods wise, like I said it before, for me, much improved over Rad Speed. Definitely impressed with these and how much more playable and longer, at least for me, that they are from Rad Speed. So definitely worth checking out. And the next thing I've got is a new driver shaft. Or it's not 100% new to me in terms of hitting it, but a new driver shaft, the VA Composites Drago. Have to pull it off my wall here for YouTube viewers. But yeah, the new, or I wouldn't say new because I think it's been in the line for a little bit, but the VA Composites Drago, which is a shaft that try to put it up here, try to display, be kind of cool here on YouTube, display the shafts. But the new Drago, so it's listed from VA Composites as a kind of a mid-high launch, low spin shaft, and it's got basically a fairly stiff tip and midsection, little softer butt section. But if you compare it to the Regine and the Sleigh, it's got basically it's got stiffer tip and butt section than those two shafts. Which I've hit the Regine, and that thing's really good. It's extremely smooth. And the big difference in terms of that, I think this thing does have an overall stiffer profile than that. If you've hit the Regine and then you hit this, they definitely feel like two totally different shafts. And like I said, the overall stiffness of this is definitely noticeable compared to that shaft. I haven't messed much with the Sleigh. I know my brother plays the Sleigh. He got fit into it in a Cobra. Was it an F9 Speed Zone? I think a Speed Zone driver. He got fit into the Sleigh, and he really likes it. And I have not hit it much, so I can't really compare it a whole lot to the Sleigh. But the Regine, this thing definitely has a stouter profile to it. I would say, the Regine is listed kind of also as kind of a mid-high launch. I think this thing launched, at least for me, this launch. Jeez, everything's falling apart today. Can't get anything to stay where it is. It's just like, man, how can I get this thing to stick here? I don't even know. Anyway, put it up here. Put it up here. Hopefully it'll stay. So like I said, listed as mid high launch, kind of low spin, and like I said, for me, I thought this launched at least a little lower than Regine did. I would consider it, for me, kind of a just above mid. If I'm going to say the Regine was a mid high launch, I think this is kind of just underneath that. So I'll call it kind of a mid. So mid high, yeah. So I'll call Regine high mid, and I'll call this mid high. Listen, launched a little lower, little flatter for me in terms of overall ball flight. I didn't see quite as much of a, in terms of the apex. This is just a touch lower. I actually really like the feel of it. I think the overall stiffer profile of it, I just really liked. I think, especially me, like I like stuff that feels stiffer in the handle, and this being a little stiffer in the handle than the Regine. I really like that. I thought the feel was really good. It's extremely smooth, like all VA composite shafts. Victor over there, the whole line, everything there just feels really good. There's zero harshness to anything in his line. Even this, which, like I said, has a little boardier, a little stiffer profile than Regine, it's still very smooth. And I was amazed. So I was hitting it in the new Mizuno STX head, the 220 STX head, which I think I'll talk about next week, just because I don't think I'm going to have enough time today. But I was hitting in that head, and I was shocked at, one, how much center contact I made. It was just, when I looked at the face of the club, it was just everything. I missed a little bit, vertically, top hit a few little lower off the face, a little higher off the face. But in terms of like right to left, I hit pretty much every ball in pretty much the center of the club. I was really shocked at how, and the consistency that I had, that I was just hitting it dead center, and I didn't feel like I was just putting on perfect swing after swing after swing. I wasn't putting on a clinic for anyone in terms of my swing by any means, but just the consistency of the shaft was really impressive. Like I said, there's very few shafts that I'll hit however many balls. It was like, I think after like 10 balls, I looked down and it was just like everything. All the marks were basically an oval, pretty much dead center. There were very, very few outside that, and when the ones that were outside that were just by a small margin. So the amount of consistency-wise, I was hitting it dead center pretty much all the time. Ball flight is pretty much neutral to maybe just a slight bit of draw to it when I hit it well in that head. Like I said, ball flight, I'm going to call it mid high as opposed to high mid for the Regine. Kind of a little higher, but it wasn't, like I said, it's hard to like explain when you're like, well, it's mid high or high mid, and without having a working launch monitor to tell you like, well, the launch was X or whatever. But like I said, extremely consistent. Hit a lot of shots right to the same basically spot. Everything there was pretty much, if my target line was one of the poles that supported the net out there, everything basically was at that pole or just to the left of it. Like I said, it was just extremely consistent, a higher launch, which I like. And I think that STX head was like a 9-degree head too. So definitely a little like, let's call it mid-high launching. Spin seemed to be really low. There was zero rise in the ball. And, even with that little bit of wind that was out there, that was kind of, I don't say it was hurting, but it was kind of that left to right breeze. Everything there stayed basically online and just kind of tracked dead straight, if not had a little bit of draw to it. No really bad swings. I could definitely hit it left. I was definitely hitting it in the center of the club face, but hitting it left. And those shots there, again, it doesn't matter what shaft or head are in there. You're still going to get those shots. But this thing here, it really was a consistent, really stable shaft. Like I said, delivered the club head basically the same every time, and I hit some really good shots with it. So I was kind of bummed. I wanted to hit it in stealth as well because I'm more familiar with stealth in terms of the ball flight and all that. But I'm an idiot, and I misplaced my Club Connects tip for that head for some reason. I don't know what I did with it. So, like I said, I was hitting in that Mizuno head. I was really impressed with, like I said, how well it played and how good it felt. Like I said, even having a stiffer profile than Regine, still really smooth. Even on shots that you did miss it. Eventually, did hit some that were, either I early extended, hit it low heel, or came kind of over the top, hit it high off the toe. Even those, you would feel the difference. You could feel a little bit more vibration there, but none of it was like harsh. You just kind of heard it, felt it a little bit, you knew you missed it, and the shots that were flushed just felt great. It really did. Easy to load, when you bring it back, as you come down, easy to load, but you never felt like it was out of control or out of place. It's very tight. Never had shots that I thought like, man, I put a good swing on that, and where's the ball going or anything like that. Everything seemed extremely tight. Right now, I would say this is probably my favorite shaft from VA Composites. I know I've only hit 3, the Regime, the Nemesis, and this. But so far, I think I'm really liking this even more than the Nemesis, which I think the Nemesis has might have a slightly stiffer butt section, but but like I said, this here just had a really good lively feel. I mean, good kick and impact. When it actually got down to release, you kind of felt the shaft working, and it was just like I said, extremely consistent. So really impressed with it there. If you're looking for something, kind of mid-high, a little higher launch than mid. But you're looking for something that's really consistent, really tight. I think this thing is definitely worth trying. I think this here, like I said, my favorite out of the 3 that I've hit by probably a good amount, and it's just like I said, really impressive with the strike pattern there. But was a big fan. I really like it. Like I said, hopefully if I get the launch monitor working, I'll try to get it out again and throw it on a monitor and get a couple of numbers just to see, spin and launch or whatever, and let at least, give you a little direction there. But overall, like I said, if you're looking for something kind of mid-high launch, lower spinning, and just really consistent and stable, the VA Composites Drago is definitely something worth trying because it was a good shaft. I had a lot of fun playing it. Big thanks to Victor for hooking me up and sending me one to try. And like I said, it's definitely something that I was impressed with. So that's all I've got today. I think I'm going to, like I said, go out, shovel some snow, and then, hopefully this weekend hit some more balls, hit some more stuff. And I know I've got Mizuno hybrids, Cobra hybrids. I got the Max LS Rogue ST. So got a bunch of stuff to hit, and then hopefully one of my launch monitors will cooperate. So I will go with that. But yeah, that's all I got this week. If you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, hit me up on Instagram at ClubJunkiePod. And appreciate everybody listening, following along, all that. It's always awesome. So thanks again, and we'll talk next week.